Boom! Welcome back to Uncanny Cold Cases, our brand new series exploring historical hauntings and classic supernatural mysteries. And we kicked off last episode with one of the most mysterious and most frightening, the Black Monk of Pontefract. We're going to jump straight back in now for part 2 of this chilling real-life haunting. At the end of last week's episode, we left you with that shocking image of the Pritchard family's formidable Aunt Maud being confronted by her own gloves, floating in the air in front of her, actually conducting her as she sang a hymn to try and scare away whatever this presence was. Quite a moment, but if this potential poltergeist has until now been mostly mischievous, its antics are about to take a much, much darker turn. Don't forget, you can get in touch and let me know what you think of this case. Put your theories and questions in the comments down below. And don't forget also to like, hype, and subscribe. Let's share the shivers, but it's time to dive back into darkness, to come face to face with the Black Monk. I'm Danny Robbins, and this is Uncanny Cold Cases.
Secrets still remain.
Hello again. If you have been quaking in your boots at the thought of those ghostly gloves floating in the air, hold on to your hats, because it's time to go to Pontefract again. We are looking at part 2 of a potential poltergeist haunting that is terrorizing the Pritchard family. Back with me again to try and unpack all of this extraordinary phenomena are two people who very definitely know the difference between normal and paranormal. For Team Skeptic, we have forensic psychologist Dr. Ciarán O'Keefe, and for Team Believer, writer and parapsychologist Evelyn Hollow. Ciarán, are you ready to go back inside 30 East Drive, this seeming house of horrors?
It is a definite house of horror. Am I ready to go back into the house? Yes, 100% I am. Far be it from me to shy away from something so terrifying. It's an amazing case and I can't wait.
You've got your proton pack.
I'm all ready.
Don't cross the streams. Evelyn, we saw so much happen last episode, didn't we? We had, just phenomena that felt hard to comprehend, hard to take in, and was bloody terrifying. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, that is the big question, because it only seems to be getting worse. And there's a point where destruction to a house is one thing, harm to a person is another.
And we are potentially going to see that. It's a genuinely frightening story, this. It takes all sorts of dark directions. All right, we have waited for this, so let us not wait any longer. What the hell is happening at number 30 East Drive? If you remember last time, it felt like the haunting had become focused around Diane Pritchard, the family's teenage daughter. Now, Diane's parents, Joe and Jean, had tried calling in a church minister, Reverend Daly, who was chased away by a floating candlestick. His only advice to them was to move house. But now, Diane's uncle Vic gets involved. Vic is a staunch Catholic, and given how desperate things are, he talks to his local priest and gets a vial of holy water to try a DIY exorcism. Back at 30 East Drive, he sprinkles a few drops of the holy water in each room and says some prayers. Nervously, Jean asks him how long it will be before they know whether it's worked. And as if in answer, a huge crash is heard from upstairs. Far from helping, this exorcism seems to have made the ghost furious. Then, an egg appears near Jean. It just pops into existence in midair and floats there for a second before it explodes, leaving nothing behind but a strange, flowery smell. It happens again. An egg materializes near Vic and smashes again, leaving that strange scent of flowers. Then, water streams down the inside walls. This is far away from any water pipes, and it's not a little condensation, it's rivers that soak the walls and the floors. And whilst all of this is happening, a persistent, rhythmic drumming reverberates throughout the house. Uncle Vic searches everywhere he can think of, looking for anything that could be causing it, but draws a blank. This noise continues throughout the night. The family can hardly sleep. Not that they would have any rest anyway, given all that is going on. But Diane retreats to her bedroom. She has the covers tucked up under her chin, and she tries to tune it all out. But when she closes her eyes to go to sleep, both she and her mattress are lifted clean into the air and dumped on the floor. Evelyn, this is the stuff of nightmares. We think of exorcisms as being like garlic to vampires. It's how you get rid of ghosts. This is the opposite. This holy water that Vic uses in his homemade exorcism, it's like catnip, isn't it?
Well, I mean, the question is, what is an exorcism? So it's a belief that a person or a building contains some sort of evil, in the Christian sense, some sort of demon, and that essentially by putting holy people into the property and reciting certain passages, doing certain actions, such as using holy water, you can drive it from the property. Now, if we don't know what a poltergeist is, we'd have to ask, well, does it care about the exorcism? Does it obey the Christian God? Does it care about what holy water is? Does it acknowledge any of it? And if it's not a living person, if it's not the spirit of someone who is deceased, and it's just a series of scientific anomalies, then why would it obey an exorcism at all? And is that why we see the phenomena continue even though the holy water has been used?
Ciarán, speaking of phenomena, I'm fascinated by these eggs. It is a genuinely extraordinary moment. What is going on here? It's eggs floating in the air, but also this heady floral spell that they talk about. A scent in a paranormal case is interesting.
It is interesting, and there could be two things happening. There could be an actual smell that they're detecting. So who's to say that there isn't the smell of the egg, or the smell of the egg when it's smashed, it's in combination with something else, and it's evoking a smell that they're misinterpreting as being a floral scent. Or the other possibility is there is no scent there at all. So it's something that we call phantosmia, the idea that you're smelling something that isn't there. Now, all that has to happen is one person thinks they smell something. They say to the other person, did you smell that? And somehow that kind of spreads around the family. They're all smelling the same thing.
He who smelt it dealt it. We've had a lot of objects floating in front of people's faces. We've had candlesticks. We had that giant, heavy carpet sweeper. We've got eggs now. If you are literally watching an object float in midair in front of your eyes, how can that not be paranormal?
Yeah, I think it's very, very difficult to explain. And you're absolutely right. It kind of... It pushes a skeptic like me to the limit when somebody says there is an object floating right in front of my eyes, but we're taking their testimony at face value, and I think that's the difficulty.
All right, okay. It is still absolutely extraordinary, isn't it, Ciarán? Sorry, Evelyn, shaking her head in dismay here. Evelyn, that rhythmic drumming that they hear, it's a small detail, but can you imagine how frightening that would be to hear that reverberating around your house?
So normally in poltergeist cases, noises are something we talk about at the beginning. And it usually starts with sort of tappings and scratchings, things that might be misinterpreted as mice or insects. And then it seems to ramp up. Now, normally we would look for explanations such as the building settling, the heating coming on and off, pipes expanding and contracting. But this is rhythmic, and it's happening again and again and again. And we can't seem to find any natural environmental explanation for it. Now, sound doesn't come from nowhere. Something has to be causing it. So unless the mice have decided to start a thrash metal band, something has to be causing the drumming.
It's so interesting, isn't it? There's just so many things to contend with, Ciarán. You must feel almost like whack-a-mole that as soon as you think you've explained one, another one pops up. Just using our Team Skeptic heads, looking for psychological explanations, is there something in the fact that so many people are experiencing these things, and maybe that there is some element of contagion here, that fear is spreading from person to person?
Yeah, I think we've got to consider that possibility, and that potentially is the only psychological explanation when you've got multiple witnesses in the same place. But also what I think helps kind of support the idea of contagion is that this is a family together. They are together all the time. It's not just random strangers that suddenly have all of these experiences and they're in the same place. They are together all the time. So they're very much feeding off each other.
But having said that, we've seen a lot of strangers come in. We've seen Aunt Maud come in. We've seen Reverend Davey come in. There are other people outside his family coming in. I mean, that's the way with this case, I guess, that we know that it's not just a family making things up. You've got outsiders coming in and witnessing stuff.
Yeah, I think that does make it very difficult. When you start to bring in other witnesses, it kind of weakens that argument. So I'm waiting for us to have more witnesses and potentially try and get some more reliable testimony.
I think also just the level of fear we're witnessing, and particularly some of the things that are about to come, you just feel like, why would any family do this to themselves? All right, thank you both. Lots to think about, but let's get back now to 30 East Drive and see how things are going for the Pritchard family. It is the day after Uncle Vic's unsuccessful DIY exorcism. The house is quiet, but Diane has had to take the day off school because she didn't sleep a wink last night. She grabs a few hours peaceful sleep on the sofa in the living room, but when she wakes up, it's almost as if Mr. Nobody wakes up too. As Diane combs her hair next to the kitchen fireplace, Jean Pritchard, her mum, is horrified to see a drawer from the kitchen table slowly slide open. Before Jean can shout a warning, the drawer whizzes across the room like a bullet, hitting Diane in the small of her back. And now, Diane begins to get that feeling of dread that she has come to recognize. She knows that more is on the way. A crucifix, complete with a small brass figure of Jesus, flies off the kitchen mantelpiece and hits Diane on the back too. But instead of dropping to the floor like the drawer did, the crucifix sticks to her like glue. It's like Diane is a magnet and the crucifix a lump of iron. Jean tries to prise it off her daughter, but she can't budge it. Diane panics and runs out into the hallway. Jean follows her. Diane is halfway across the hall, clawing at her back, trying to reach this crucifix, when there's a small clunk, and Jean sees on the ground just one small part of this ornament. The tiny figure of Jesus has somehow come dislodged. The cross part is still stuck to Diane. She is panicking, looking to her mum for help. Jean feels useless. She doesn't know what to do, but then finally, the crucifix too drops from Diane's back, leaving her feeling shaken and bruised. Gingerly, Jean lifts Diane's blouse to see if the cross has hurt her. There, between her shoulder blades, Jean sees that the crucifix has left a cross-shaped mark on Diane's skin. It's like she has been branded by a red-hot piece of metal, and the mark, it is still visible on Diane's back for 3 days. Evelyn, we've had quite a few moments now of religious symbolism in this case. Here we've got another holy item, a crucifix, behaving in a very strange way. If this is some kind of paranormal entity we're dealing with, does it have an agenda here?
Well, that's the thing. So is it that us as people are interpreting it as being religious because, of course, we're seeing an exorcism, we're seeing the use of holy water, and now we've got this crucifix that seems to be stuck onto Diane's back, and when they do finally get it pulled off, it leaves this big cross shape. Now, we automatically think of symbols like the cross being of goodness, of being purity against evil and things that are dark. So we automatically assign it those weights. But is it just that the objects in the house are being thrown around? I mean, we've had everything from eggs to plant pots to water puddles. We've had marmalade and jam. We've had toilet paper on door handles. But as soon as it's the crucifix, we automatically assign it this moral weight when really it's just her being hit with another item in the house. Or is it something with an agenda? Is it something that does want to purposely cause fear?
It's such a thought. Ciarán, that was me trying to think of something more frightening that I've ever heard in the whole history of us investigating Uncanny. I don't think I can. This moment with the crucifix is just so terrifying.
It is, and I'm a little bit freaked out because some of the skeptical explanations that I would be reaching for, well, they're very few and far between. I think, short of somebody playing the worst prank that you could possibly do and taking a metal crucifix and, heating it up on an oven, in an oven, and then throwing it on her back. I say that, and as I say it, I'm almost dismissing it in my head because I think, well, that's just ridiculous.
It seems to fire out like a bullet almost and then attach itself like a red-hot magnet to her back. I'm struggling here. I'm struggling to kind of comprehend it full stop. It's making me feel very uncomfortable, but I don't see how this is possible.
The difficulty is, how does that object stick to her back? And that I genuinely cannot explain.
Evelyn, it feels like such a big progression now. We've moved from things like crockery and potted plants to this now, and it's happening in plain sight, in daylight.
Yeah, so we're not just talking about people hearing things in the nighttime. We're not talking about hearing crashing in a room and then you go through and then you have to kind of retroactively stitch together what you think has happened. And of course, there can be a lot of human error there. This is us seeing things happening in broad daylight in front of multiple people. It's happening all day long. They're all in the room when it's happening. Everybody is accounted for. So what is causing it? Because if we're looking at this being a human agent, okay, if we're looking at someone faking it, how is it that you can all be sat in a room together and objects are being thrown about to the point now where crucifixes are being stuck in a young girl's back? It takes multiple people to pull it off. It leaves bruises that last for 3 days. What kind of magic trick is that?
And it's important to acknowledge at this moment as well, isn't it, that, we get very excited about ghost stories. We love these kind of gripping encounters, but this is a young girl at the heart of this. You cannot even imagine how frightened Diane will be.
No, so she'd either have to accept that there's some sort of unseen paranormal force in the house, or one of her own family members is essentially torturing her.
Yeah, which of those is the more frightening one? Ciarán, it is a huge question, isn't it? Can a ghost hurt a person?
In my opinion, no, they can't. But I think we've got to face the reality of the situation now, even, from a team skeptic perspective, and that is people are getting hurt. So regardless of how we think about it, it's incredibly terrifying for the family. If I was an investigator in this particular case, I would be coming in and I would be saying genuinely, like Reverend Davey said, let's get out of here.
That line from Aunt Maud, the devil is in this house. I mean, many of us maybe don't believe in that concept of the devil, but there is something here now that feels palpably evil, I guess, that it wants to hurt people.
Yeah, I think if there is something there that wants to hurt people, whether it's natural or supernatural, it's wrong, and from an ethical standpoint, it has to stop. I don't know how much more this family could take at this point.
All right, thank you, Ciarán. This case is so unsettling, isn't it? I would love to know what you're making of it. Keep all your theories, questions and comments coming in. And whether you're team believer or team skeptic, don't forget to like, hype and subscribe as well. We'd love you to spread the word about uncanny cold cases. This case has been an absolute roller coaster so far. We are coming to the final bend, but it is an absolutely terrifying one. On Easter Sunday, that flowery smell, that floral scent that the family detected when those eggs exploded is back in the house again. But this time, there is not an egg in sight. Instead, Joe and Jean find something that chills them to the bone. On every door throughout the house, a gold cross has appeared, painted upside down. The size and shape are so regular that it looks like they've been made with a stencil. But when the family try to recreate them themselves, the paint just runs off the door. And if you think all of that's chilling, Mr. Nobody is about to make his first physical appearance. We are about to actually see something here. It's Joe and Jean who get the first glimpse of him. As they're lying in bed one night, the door to their room creaks open and a shadowy figure fills the doorway. It is too dark to see clearly, but afterwards they both say that it is very tall, very dark, and appears to be a man wearing a hood. When they switch the light on, he disappears. Joe's sister, Renee, is staying in the spare room one night. When she feels a hand touch the back of her head, she's startled and looks around the room. She sees the lower half of a man, seemingly dressed in a black robe, illuminated by light coming through the curtains before he turns and walks out of the room. She too reaches for the light, but by the time she turns it on, whatever was there has vanished. The next time the figure appears is in the kitchen of their next door neighbour, Mrs. Mountain. Now, her house has already seen many of the same effects as those plaguing the Pritchards, intriguingly. Drumming, strange noises, only nowhere near as pronounced as what's going on at number 30. But on this occasion, the ghost is not shy. Mrs. Mountain becomes aware of the presence of someone behind her as she stands in her kitchen. Initially, she thinks it's her nephew playing a prank. "Oh, give over," she says, in mock exasperation. But when Mrs. Mountain turns around, she is horrified to see a tall, dark figure dressed in a black robe, like a monk's habit. The hood is drawn over the figure's head, obscuring its face. Before her astonished eyes, the figure simply vanishes. Ciarán, this case has become known as the Black Monk of Pontefract. People might have been wondering why up till now. Have we just met the monk?
If we follow the testimonies, then yes, we have, because ultimately we've got a number of witnesses now that are describing seeing a figure with a hood, and effectively they're describing it as a black monk.
What do you make of this? Because, a figure seen in a doorway at night, there's many ways to misinterpret things and maybe make mistakes there, but what about what happens at Mrs. Mountain's house?
Well, we're thinking about her as an independent witness. She's there doing the washing up, and then she feels a presence behind her, turns around, and it's this black monk. Now, because that seemingly happens not in a bedroom, not at night time, she's seeing it in a well-lit room, we can kind of look at it as better evidence. However, she's doing a mundane activity, and I always say to you, when people are doing mundane activities that they do over and over and over again, there is a very real potential to slip into that hypnagogic state between waking and sleeping and not realize that you're doing that. And also the fact she will have heard the stories next door about what's happening. So potentially that'll be enough of a suggestion for her to have this experience, and it purely being a visual hallucination.
You're right. I mean, there'll probably be lots of people at home, who'll have had this happen to them. They'll have been washing up at home and then turn around and seen a black monk right behind them. What are you talking about, Ciarán? Evelyn, there are quite tangible reasons, aren't there, why it's become known as the Black Monk of Pontefract. You've been looking into the history of the area. I mean, there are certain stories that feed into this legend.
The legend is that there was a monk who was executed here for strangling and or potentially raping a young girl, and that the execution site was actually said to be connected to where the house is. However, I believe this to be purely urban legend, but when I did dig into the history of the priory, which is located really close, it's only 1.5 miles from the house, there is some other really odd supernatural stuff. It included that several monks were actually charged for murder here, actually for murdering other monks, unusually. There is also Thomas the Earl of Lancaster, who was executed here, was later made into being a saint because weird stuff happened with his tomb, including seeing blood running out of it. But the most interesting one for me was that in the 1100s, Archbishop Thurston, who was an old man by that point, came to the priory to take his vows. Now, he died just 10 days later. However, when his grave was opened several years after his death, the Archbishop's remains were recorded as being found sweet-smelling and undecayed. Which is unusual.
Wow, that's interesting. It does sweet smelling like those eggs exploding in the kitchen. All right.
And now we've got an archbishop that apparently doesn't die, and he smells like flowers. I mean, if you were going to line up two weird bits of phenomena, it doesn't get any weirder than that, I don't think.
All right, really interesting. So there has been some proper monkey business in the past of this property. Ciarán, what are your thoughts on all that?
What? Violence, murder, intrigue, mystery, deception in religion and in the royal family? God, I'm not surprised at all. Find any period in history and you're going to find a story that could potentially relate to this phenomena at the house. I think what we're doing here is we're connecting dots where there isn't really a connection. We're trying to find a basis
Well, look,
to the
we
story.
want stories, don't we? All of us human beings, we crave meaning. We want to explain these seemingly unexplainable events. We have witnessed so much phenomena, so many moments that seem to be impossible. You want it to make sense at the end. And that idea of it being personified in this figure of the Black Monk, people have really, throughout the years that people have been looking at this case, people have kind of weirdly liked that idea, haven't they?
They have liked the idea, but only because I think it is simple. As human beings, I think you're absolutely right. We like to have simple dichotomies, black, white, good, evil, but if there's phenomena, we need to know who's responsible for that, and we need to have a story behind it. If anything, for me, and you're going to laugh at this, I just think we're dealing with Mr. Nobody. We don't have to have a story to get into the phenomena and try and work out what's happening here. It doesn't have to be associated with a historical case for it to be impressive.
All right, thank you both. We are coming towards the end of our case. We would love to know what you think of all of this. Do you have a rational explanation, or will you be sleeping with the lights on tonight? Please keep up all those comments, hit those like, hype and subscribe buttons. We love all that interaction. We want you to let us know what you think of Uncanny Cold Cases. But we are about to face the climax of our story. It is just a few days later. The family are all together in the living room, and Diane gets up and goes to the kitchen to make a coffee. Immediately, the lights go out and Diane screams. The family rush into the hall. As it's dusk, the house isn't quite in total darkness yet. It takes a few seconds for everyone's eyes to adjust and see what the cause of the screaming is. Jean and Philip find Diane being dragged bodily up the stairs, her cardigan stretched out in front of her as if unseen hands are pulling it. Diane's screams echo around the house as Jean and Philip try to pull her away from her unseen attacker. A horrific tug of war commences, with this seeming entity pulling Diane up the stairs and the Pritchards trying to pull her down. In the heat of the moment, Philip has an odd idea. He suddenly realizes that if this thing, whatever it is, can physically touch Diane, maybe he can physically touch it. He reaches out, not trying to release Diane anymore, but reaching beyond her to try and feel whatever it is that is pulling Diane upstairs. And in that second, as his hand reaches out, whatever has grabbed his sister seemingly releases its grip, and the three tumble backwards down the stairs, Jean and Philip taking an extremely shaken Diane to the living room and giving her a stiff brandy. You could do that kind of thing with teenagers in the 1960s. It's only then that they notice what they shouldn't and couldn't have seen in the darkened hallway. Around Diane's throat are a ring of red finger marks. Ciarán, where do we even begin here? These seeming finger marks on Diane's neck, it's absolutely extraordinary.
It is extraordinary. And even as a skeptic, I look at this and I go, there is a possibility that in them trying to kind of, protect her and take her away from whatever is pulling her away, that there has been some interaction with the neck or accidentally. But I feel like I'm reaching as a skeptic in terms of that explanation. When people report finger marks around a neck, they know exactly what that is. And here we've got some tangible physical evidence that something was grabbing her, and it makes it very difficult to explain.
Evelyn, this is often referred to as the most violent poltergeist case in British history. Do you think the Pritchard family were actually in danger?
Yeah, they're absolutely in danger, because they're either in danger from an unseen supernatural force, or they're in danger from another person in the house, perhaps one of their own family members or neighbours, or they're in danger from themselves. I think regardless of what you believe this case is caused by, we've escalated to the point now of threat to life. And so it doesn't matter if it's supernatural or not, these people are in absolute danger.
Ciarán, what everybody will want to know is what happened next. How long did the family stay there for, and did anybody who lived in that house afterwards experience anything?
I think the interesting thing is Jean lived there till 2001. Subsequent to that, there have been investigations of the property and people have reported activity. They reported objects being thrown, objects moving, sense of presence, but also people actually being interacted with.
And it's interesting, people do post photographs of their trips there, don't they? And people sometimes post photographs of injuries they claim to have picked up, scratches and things like that.
Yeah, they do. But like I said, psychologically, are we seeing something psychosomatic or people wanting that fame because they're having the same phenomena happen to them that happened to the Pritchards? It's like I said at the beginning of the case. For me, the original case is the most interesting part. All the subsequent phenomena that we get post 2001, I feel there's a little bit of storytelling going on there, a little bit of exaggeration.
Evelyn, the moment it seems to end in our case, it's Philip who breaks the spell. Is that significant? It was him who was there at the very beginning.
I think it's significant because we assign significance to it, because for us, yeah, he was the first person it began to. But is it that because it started with him, he's had the experience of it the longest, and therefore he's the one that is able to kind of break the sense of fear and realise, okay, well, if it can touch us, then I can also touch it.
Uncanny community, you have heard what our experts think. Thank you so much to Ciarán and Evelyn. Please let me know what you make of this story. Hit me with your theories or questions as well for our experts. Get busy in those comments, or you can email me, uncanny@bbc.co.uk, or find me, Danny Robbins, on social media. I'm pretty much across every platform. Love to chat to people. If you've got a cold case you think we should look at, let me know. Don't forget also to like, hype and subscribe. It really helps to spread the word about the show. Tell everybody about Uncanny Cold Cases. It has been my pleasure, as ever, to bring a little shiver into your lives. Next time on Uncanny Cold Cases, we are off to New Hampshire in the USA, back in 1961 for the original UFO abduction case.
I'm racking my brains about this because it is tangible physical evidence.
They realised the craft had sort of come beside them. It was now basically following them, so that's not weather phenomena. And now they're at the point of fear where they pull a gun out of the glove box because they fear for their life. I mean, that's some hallucination.
Terrifying. Join us next week. Until then, sleep well. Don't have nightmares.
Secrets still remain.